Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Premier League match day 12. We left the Premier League with Liverpool out of the title race, heavy defeat against Man City, and Arsenal sleeping in Sunderland. So it's very exciting, Tom. It looks like a two-horse race at this moment in time.
Yeah, at this moment in time, I think that's a well-placed few words you put at the end of that sentence, because I still think Liverpool, as the season goes on, will come good. There will obviously be an Arsenal slide. I don't discount Chelsea. I don't discount a couple of runs from other teams too. We're in the bit now where the platform is set. We're now going to find out who's in it or not in it by the time we get to New Year's Day. New Year's Day is the final barometer. You in the title race? We'll find out in the next 7 or 8 games.
Exactly. These 2 months are crucial to see how this Premier League is developing. So, guys, stay with us. Let's analyze all the games that we have this weekend, including Newcastle, Man City, and, of course, North London Derby, Arsenal, Tottenham. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about these games? And, of course, press the like, subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. And the first game, early kickoff, always with surprises. We have Burnley, Chelsea favorites. Still kind of good odds if you want to back the Blues, 1.5. They are only 6 points away from Arsenal, even if probably if we think about the season, it leaves us a little bit cold. But yeah, they are there, only 2 games away from Arsenal. Is 4 wins in the last 5 games in the Premier League, only losing to Sunderland and Burnley with the same points as West Ham since they lost in East London. Well, Tom, this is the kind of stadiums that you have to go there and grab the points, even if it's an ugly win, as Arsenal or Liverpool did, for instance, this season.
It's a huge game for both teams, this. It's a really, really interesting game as well, because Burnley have done a fantastic job in recent times winning big games. Before the West Ham game, they'd beaten Wolves, they'd beaten Leeds, and they just looked like a team who, yeah, they might make it. But I've always felt they wouldn't, and I still feel like they won't, because there's just not enough quality in this team. And I think maybe the West Ham game 2 weeks ago sort of showed us that, in that if you go through that starting 11, if they got relegated this season, how many come back to the Premier League? I'd maybe say Fleming up front, potentially 𝐬𝐭𝐤 in midfield, potentially Jadon Anthony, maybe. Beyond that, I'm struggling. Certainly defensively, I'm struggling for Premier League quality players. I know that some people think that Florentino in midfield is of required quality. I'm not convinced by his ability in this league as yet. So look, I think Burnley lost their first quote-unquote big game last time out against West Ham. And it's going to be intriguing to see how they now start doing in the big game. Because once you've lost a game that for you is important, you've got to get unexpected points to stay in the league. And this would be unexpected points. Against Arsenal, they were barely in the game. Against Aston Villa before that, they should have lost more comfortably in terms of playing teams from the top half. So going to be really, really interesting. And now the defence is starting to really creak with Burnley. 3 goals to West Ham, 2 against Arsenal, 2 against Wolves, 2 against Villa. Only 1 clean sheet in their last 5, that game against Leeds we mentioned. So I think there are issues there with Burnley that need to be solved. They aren't going to be a particularly offensive side to stay in the league. They're going to try and hold out as the game goes on. And that's a problem with Chelsea, because Chelsea score plenty of goals. 3 against Wolves, 1 against Tottenham, 4 against Wolves in the cup game, and then scored against Sunderland previously. So they've scored in all of their last 5 in all competitions. And I'm just looking at my notes here to see about fitness. I don't really know that because of the international break and whatnot. We're expecting 𝗀𝗵𝗄 and 𝗛𝗏 to both be fit, and that is clearly Enzo Maresca's idea. 𝗛𝗏 plays forward, 𝗀𝗵𝗄 plays deeper, and he's a sort of hybrid 10-9. They can go 4-4-2 or 1 behind the striker at different points during the game. I think you add that to Neto's been fantastic. On the other side, I guess Garnacho has the starting role, but they have about 5,000 wingers who can play there. If they've got their first choice midfield as well as Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, that's a real solid base. Don't know much about the fitness of Fofana. Don't know who will be alongside. I guess Chalobah, but we'll see. Once you've solved that issue, I think Chelsea look quite strong. And if everyone is fit as expected, I expect them to be strong here and win this game fairly convincingly. I can see it being reasonably similar to the Arsenal game, which was 2-0 to Arsenal, except for the fact that Chelsea are also a bit leaky. So Chelsea win, you mentioned 1.5, take that. I do see there being a cheeky Burnley goal in this game because, again, Chelsea do give you chances, and I fancy Fleming to take it if it comes. Chelsea and both teams to score a really, really generous 3.25. And a nice little group bet here of 2-1, 3-1, 4-1 Chelsea, 4.33. There will be goals in this game, and Chelsea will score more than Burnley.
Well, must win for Chelsea if they want to keep their hopes at least until Christmas to win the Premier League. I mean, to be at least in the title race. Next one is Bournemouth, West Ham. Great 2 wins for West Ham before the international break. Crucial ones at home against Burnley and Newcastle. So this team has another spirit under Nuno Espiritu Santo. Now it's more difficult because they are traveling to the south, to Bournemouth. They were smashed by Aston Villa away. But at home, Tom, this season is 4 wins and 1 draw, Bournemouth.
Yeah, good team at home, and I think the international break came at a really good time for Bournemouth as well, because that loss against Villa would have been stinging. That really will be one that the manager is thinking about. Maybe, I didn't read his quotes after the game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Indoni Iraola, either internally or externally, thought that was one of the worst performances any of his teams have ever put in. They were so poor in that game. Defensively, they were found out multiple times. The fullbacks had bad games. The centre-halves had bad games. In midfield, they were overwhelmed, which has not really happened too much with Tyler Adams and Scott in central midfield, but it did happen in that game. And offensively, they didn't really threaten very much. It was, all in all, an awful performance. And of course, with the City loss before that, it's back-to-back defeats, though I'm not sure what you take from that, considering one of the losses was Man City. So, look, I expect them to go pretty much back to their best team here. I expect, if Adams is fit, to be alongside Scott in central midfield. I expect Senesian Milivojevic to shake off the disappointments of the previous game. And I think with this West Ham defence, we go back to seeing 𝗀𝗵𝗏 and Evan Nielsen, similar to 𝗛𝗏𝗏 and 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐵𝐵 at Chelsea, causing real problems to West Ham, because as we know, West Ham do concede goals. Even against Burnley, if they'd have won that game 3-1, West Ham, they would have been out of the relegation zone going into this game on goal difference. They found a way to concede a 95th minute nothing goal to go back into the relegation zone out of nowhere. They find ways to concede goals. So, look, Bournemouth have lots of threats. They have lots of rotation. I'm intrigued to see if Antoine Semenyo is fit here, because he began this season so good. All this speculation about his future and a release clause in January, and now the form has tailed off. And if it's Tavernier and Brooks on the wings, they're good players. Semenyo is a potentially great player, so that's an interesting dynamic here. In terms of West Ham, the 2 wins were really important. They played well against Newcastle and well deserved to win. It wasn't exactly the same against Burnley, but it was a proper Nuno Espirito Santo, David Moyes style, forget the ball and take your chances sort of performance. And after his chaotic team selections against Leeds and Brentford, which could prove costly as the season goes on, he certainly found a very Nuno-looking team here, in that Freddie Potts has come into midfield and has given a great balance alongside Fernandes. There were no Lucas Paqueta in this game. He's suspended, so I expect Tomas Souček to come into midfield in a sort of number 10 role. Could be someone else, but I think it's probably going to be him. Defence looks settled. The front line looks settled. And beyond that, it's going to be pretty much the same team beyond injuries that we got against Burnley and Newcastle. And there's good balance to it. They've got protection in front of the central defensive pairing, who have swapped over for reasons I still don't quite understand. They've got good dynamism in midfield from Fernandes. Like, Potts and Fernandes could compete with Scott and Adams. And that's not something they could do when they had Souček and Irving playing in central midfield against Leeds. So, look, West Ham have got a better balance about them than they had a few weeks ago. I still wouldn't back them to win here. I do think as the season goes on, they're going to win some away games playing in this way. But there's not a great deal of depth. And when Callum Wilson is too tired to continue on the hour, they had been bringing on Tomas Souček. I think Souček starts here. That means, if fit, Nicholas Füllkrug has a rare cameo. So I think that could be a problem for West Ham as the game goes on. So take the Bournemouth win at 1.6. I think you have to do that. I don't think it'll be a stonking win for Bournemouth. I'm thinking it'll be similar to maybe Bournemouth Forest or Leeds West Ham. So Bournemouth to win by exactly 1 goal is 3.5. Absolutely screams 1-0 or 2-1 here. I think it'll be quite tight. If you want to cover a few bases here, Bournemouth win 1-0, 2-0 or 3-0. 3-0 I think is a bit much, but 1-0 or 2-0 is a potential 3.5. Also, don't discount the draw. If West Ham score first, I think they will find a way to hold on for a 1-1. But narrow Bournemouth is where I'd go here.
Well, and mid-table clash or match is Brighton, Brentford. I think these teams don't have many hopes this season, but it's already a lot for Brentford after losing the manager and so many players. They are in the middle of the table, and they've been very good, especially at home. Away, they've only beaten West Ham and Brighton. Also stronger when they are playing at home. They grab a draw in the derby against Crystal Palace, but at home, Tom, is 3 wins and 2 draws. So I guess, again, we should look at the home win here.
Yeah, I would definitely shade for the home win of the available options. Look, I think Brighton are still trying to work it out this season. I think that they've had some moments where 𝐬𝐿𝐴 and 𝗵𝗵𝗶 have looked really good in central midfield, and then suddenly 𝗵𝗵𝗶 comes off, or they change formation, or the manager's not happy with him, and Milner comes in, or Gomez goes central, or something like that. So I think they're still trying to work out exactly what their best team is. I do get the sense, when talking to friends of mine who are Brighton fans, that there's not a great deal of satisfaction with Fabian Hertz and his team. They are very functional. They are not particularly entertaining. This is not Roberto De Zerbi's team or the best Graham Potter team. This is a pretty functional, where are they going? What are they doing? It sort of feels like their position as best run club in the league has been usurped by Bournemouth somewhat. They've relied heavily on Danny Welbeck this season, 6 goals in the Premier League already. Again, it's another combination of central striker and other central striker who can also drop deeper, and 𝗀𝗏 behind him. They haven't got much from Mitoma this season, who could be out for this one. We haven't seen much from Minte this season. There's your big problem. Your two most dynamic, entertaining players have not been particularly good, and there's not a great deal of rotation if those two guys aren't delivering. I know Gomez has done all right recently, but again, is he as good as Mitoma? I don't think so. So it's an interesting time for Brighton. I think that they are waiting for a spark that isn't just Danny Welbeck this season, and maybe it will come in a game like this. In terms of Brentford, their home form has been spectacular. I do think they well deserved to win that West Ham game a few weeks ago, but away from home, beyond that, they've been pretty weak, actually. I thought the performance against Crystal Palace was almost inept, considering the win against Liverpool was the previous it's got a league game. I think it beat Grimsby in between that in the Cup. But I was really surprised by how weak they were. And that's going to be interesting. Away from home, I do think Brentford will be a bit of a soft touch this season. Because when you put pressure on Henderson and 𝗷𝗿𝗄 and 𝗵𝗀𝗀, which West Ham didn't a few weeks ago, but Palace did, they had nowhere else to go. Beyond the ball over the top to Thiago, who's got a really impressive 8 goals in the Premier League this season, there's not much else there. There's ball over the top, and there's 𝐿𝐭𝐴 long throw. Full stop, end of all tactics. And if you score the first goal and close those things down, you will get victory against Brentford. If you don't do that, if you give Henderson room to pick out these gorgeous balls over the top to the guys in behind at pace, you could be in trouble. So in this game, I would take the Brighton win. The odds aren't amazing at 1.91. If you're picking out a player, there's 2 players here. Danny Welbeck scores anytime, 2.75. Similar odds for Thiago to score anytime. So look at those 2 informed players, 2 of the top scorers in the Premier League this season, just tucked in behind Erling Haaland. And as ever with Brighton games, never discount the draw at 3.5. Never discount the draw on both teams' score. A 1-1, for example, is 7.
Well, not the most exciting games of all. This one, Brighton-Brentford, 2 teams in the middle of the table. Fulham-Sunderland here is a bit more interesting because we have Fulham only 1 point above West Ham, and we have Sunderland in Champions League spots. The most surprising team, of course, this season. They were able to grab a draw with that equalizer in the very last minute against Arsenal. Great goals, and away they are also getting some points. Remember, they beat Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. Fulham at home, 3 wins this season. Tom, this is where they are building their strength. What do you think about this one? The bookies place Fulham as favorites, perhaps 2 favorites.
If you're going to bet on this game, you have to bet on Sunderland to win. That's my advice here. I don't know if they will. I'll talk to you a bit about how I think they could, but I do think that these odds are too irresistible. I think 3.6 this morning. It could well be better than that by the time people are watching this. So look, I think Fulham have got some problems, right? And that's where this comes from. I think it's fair to say that West Ham have had a disaster this season. Forest have had a disaster this season. But, again, I keep saying this. We just got out of the beginning. We are into the hard yards now. Every point's going to be massive. And Fulham are only 1 point clear of West Ham. Now, that's not great. considering how bad West Ham have been started this season. They're only 2 clear of Forest. That's not great. They're only the same points as Leeds and 1 clear of Burnley. Today, would I say Fulham are going to get relegated? No, I wouldn't. I'd still say Burnley and Leeds, as I've said all along. It could be West Ham and Forest or someone else in that group. But I think you're now going to start talking about Fulham in that mix if they don't win games like this. I think there's not a great deal of dynamism in midfield. Sander Berge and Sasa Lukic are good players, solid players, but there's not a great deal of dynamism in there. They've not got they're really good 6 out of 10 players, but are they 8 out of 10 players? I don't think so. I think you're relying on Josh King a lot as a teenager to be the creative force in this team. And if he's not doing it, Smith Rowe's not doing it, where does that leave you? Tom Rennie is 35, 36. I don't think he's going to be that player anymore. And if it was all of on from Fulham at this moment in time, and with no Rodrigo Muniz, it's all about Raul Jimenez up front. Without him, they often rotate in games. Without him, there isn't really anyone else for Fulham. So Marco Silva said it multiple times. They did not invest enough in the summer. I don't think Kevin has done enough to earn a starting berth in this team. And without Anthony Robinson on one side, with all due respect to Sessegnon, they have lost maybe their most important creative outlet. So there's a few problems to solve. And I think you saw that a bit in the Fulham result. It was at the Everton result for Fulham. It was just a bit meh. It didn't really turn up. You saw it a bit in the loss against Newcastle. It was just a bit, okay, we're in the game, but how do we win it? And that's what he's got to solve, Marco Silva. And of course, those talks about his contract aren't helping the overall feeling of doom that's suddenly coming over Craven Cottage. Again, I think they'll be fine, but it might be a rough ride to the end. In terms of Sunderland, look, they keep on surprising us, don't they? The performance against Arsenal, should they have lost that game? Yes. Was our bet pretty much right? Yes. But then you can't legislate for a 92nd minute, chaotic levelling goal, right? But brilliant from Sunderland. Absolutely brilliant, right? It ruined my bet. But again, it was just a fantastic... It was endeavour, right? They're just in it right now, Sunderland. They look like a team full of confidence, wind in their sails. Everyone is doing more than their sort of, FIFA card would suggest they're able to do, their EA Sports card. I still see a drop-off coming. But I think they've got so many points now, that drop-off is not going to be particularly relevant when it happens. To already have 19 points, the average to stay in the Premier League across the last decade is 32, 33 points. They are basically there already. If they just draw a few games, get a couple more wins, they're already going to make it. It's an incredible start to any season for Sunderland. But look, to be a bit negative, a couple of times this season they've been quite poor. And those times have been away from home. I think about United away, Burnley away, 1 or 2 others. Beyond Chelsea away, they haven't really done it away from home this season. It's been all about Stadium of Light. I think that they're going to go really super defensive in that 5-4-1 shape. They're going to look at 𝗀𝗀𝗄𝐿 to be an all-round action man. And they're going to try and get Isidore to take chances when they come. I think this is going to be a really attritional, tough watch. I think the first goal is going to be absolutely crucial. And if Sunderland get it, Fulham are in trouble because of the lack of creativity they have in their team. Sunderland win at 3.6 is irresistible. You have to take that. If Sunderland do win, I think they're going to win it with both teams scoring. They'll score the early goal and nick a second. Fulham will pull one back. Screams 2-1 if they are going to win it. Sunderland, both teams to score is a really generous 7. If Fulham win, it's going to be tight. On its own, not worth betting on. Fulham by exactly 1 goal, 3.75. Look a bit similar to all these games that they're in. 2-0, 2-1, 1-0, 1-1. Beyond the Wolves game, every game is pretty tight. It'll be a very, very close Fulham win if they win it. But got to take those odds for Sunderland.
All right, it could be easily a draw also. Fulham, Sunderland, really, really tight. This one, now we go to Anfield, Liverpool. Nottingham Forest, we left the Premier League with a really poor Liverpool. They didn't compete against Man City. They were completely run over by Haaland, by Pep Guardiola after the win against Real Madrid in the Champions League. But it's already the 5th defeat of the season in the Premier League. So many problems. It looks like Wirtz is only happy when he's playing for Germany, as we saw in the international break. Imagine that they are even behind Man United in the standings. And for Forest, Tom. They are seeing a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel with Sean Dyche, first win for him in the Premier League, also getting decent results in Europe. He could be revitalizing this Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to Forest, but I do think both Forest and West Ham will stay up now. They've brought in managers who know how to get results and be hard to beat, and that's what Forest are going to be here, hard to beat. If Liverpool are going to win this game, they're going to have to play well. They're going to have to play well, and they're going to have to find out what this best team is. Like, we've been skirting around it now for 3 months, 4 months. What's the best team? We've seen a couple of good moments from Florian Wirtz, who you mentioned. Like against Real Madrid, played pretty well. He was a good player. But then in kind of the next game, you're like, where is he again? What's he doing? Is he available in this Man City match? You know, so is he the starting left winger or is it Cody Gakpo? If it were me, I would pick Gakpo and I wouldn't play Florian Wirtz. But I don't think that Florian Wirtz was signed in a vacuum. I think it's evident that that he was wanted by Arne Slot, and he's obviously got a plan to play him, right? What that plan is, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like, was it to play left wing? Is that something that's been created on the training pitch? Is it shunt him left and see what he can do? I don't know. The only player for Liverpool this season who has played consistently well in every single game is 𝗵𝗵 Szoboszlai. Beyond that, everyone has been a bit up and down. There's been some good moments for Conor Bradley, some bad moments. Good moments, 𝗵𝗵, bad moments, etc. We've not seen enough from Mo Salah this season, though he is their top scorer with 4 in the Premier League. There's the issue. He scored less than Thiago and less than Danny Welbeck this season. You know, he's got a similar scoring pattern to someone like Thomas Souček, which is, you know, respectable if you're Thomas Souček, none if you're Mo Salah, one of the highest paid players, highest profile players in the world. So, really intriguing game this. Is Salah going to be the man to break them down? Is Florian Wirtz going to have the creativity to get into pockets of space and slip in 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 or be up front? Because I don't think Alexander Isak exists. I don't know. I've not double-checked that. Who is the central midfield? Is it Gravenberch and McAllister? If that's the pairing, which one is going to be the sitter? If it's Gravenberch, you've got to make him sit. If not, you've got to play someone else. They do seem to be lacking that player that sits in front of the defence and holds it together and covers for the growing deficiencies of Van Dijk and 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿. And it is worth noting too that Mamardashvili is a good goalkeeper. Alisson, for me, is the best goalkeeper in the league. And without him, there has been a drop-off. And we saw that against City as well. So, look, I think there's all sorts of issues there, but these are high-end issues that Arne Slot's got to solve, but he still has to solve them. In terms of Forest, look, what does Sean Dyche do? What does Nuno do? What does Moyes do? What does Pulis do? They come in and they say, what's happening? Well, we're conceding too many goals. All right, let's stop that. What's happening? Oh, we're losing too many games. Oh, let's stop that. What about winning? Doesn't matter at the moment. All we've got to do is stop conceding, stop losing, stop the rot, and then goals will come. And we saw that against Leeds a couple of weeks ago. It was the perfect Sean Dyche performance. They conceded the opening goal in the game. It was a great goal. For Forest, it was a terrible goal, which is why I sort of stumbled there. Like, it was the first shot Leeds had and it went in. Did they crumble? No. They got on the front foot, they got physical, they roughed up Leeds, they got level, they got the win, and then they secured it later on. Very similar to West Ham against Burnley, that game. I think that was a turning point weekend 2 weekends ago, with Forest beating Leeds and West Ham beating Burnley. Brought them right back into the discussion, and that's going to be the discussion, I think, for the rest of this season. Can West Ham and Forest get above Leeds and Burnley? And it's games like this. If they could get a point out of this, it would mean the world to Forest. They will sit deep, they will low block, they will tackle, they will hassle, they will harry, they'll try and get a corner, they'll look for 𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 back post, they'll look for Murillo back post, they'll try and find Gibbs-White in space on the break to slip in, I guess, 𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐲 in front, and they'll try and take the chance when it comes. So, you know the pattern of this game. There's 2 ways it goes. Number 1, Forest win it 1-0. Number 2, Liverpool win it, and I think they score a goal in each half. So Liverpool win 1.4. If they score the early goal, they'll go on to win, I think, reasonably convincingly. 2-0 is 7.5. If they score in the first 10, they could go on to win 2-0 or 3-0. If they don't, things will get very edgy and they might start playing into Sean Dyche's hands. Liverpool under 2.5 is 4.3, which I think is really, really generous. It depends on your confidence in Liverpool. Liverpool under 3.5 is 2.38. Either go with a low-scoring Forest or go with a decent-scoring Liverpool by at least 2 goals.
Well, it could be these kind of games that are difficult to swallow for Liverpool. We saw it at the beginning of the season with this new Nottingham Forest, but Liverpool really need the win, considering they are 8th right now if we check the standings. Next one is Wolves Crystal Palace, Wolves, only 2 points, one of the worst teams in Europe, almost hopeless, I would say, for consecutive defeats for them. So, of course, Crystal Palace are the favorites. Odds are around 2, not bad. They are looking at European spots, although it's only one win in the last 5 Premier League games, Tom, after a great start of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this game's worth watching.
No.
But I do think there are interesting things in it if you are going to bet on it. And, you're like a Premier League sicko like me who will watch the entire 90 minutes of this. I'm fascinated by Rob Edwards going to Wolves. I understand his rationale for taking the job, which was he's played 100 games plus for Wolves, he's a Wolverhampton Wanderers fan, and this is the job he always wanted, right? I'm prepared to believe that. I think I have some doubts about it. I'm sure a decent chunk of cash has come into the equation as well, but fine, I'm prepared to believe it. He hasn't got much to work with here. Strand-Larsen is not scoring this season. Huge problem. Defensively, they are absolutely woeful, Wolverhampton Wanderers, with 25 goals conceded already. Both goalkeepers, Jose Sarr and Johnston, have made mistakes leading to goals. If it's 5 at the back, 𝐿𝐿𝐼's young man, Bueno and Gomez aren't particularly good. I think 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗀 will be not suspended for this game, but will he go back into the team? I don't think so. Not a great deal of legs in midfield with the 2 Gomez. I think both are lacking in power for this league. And Strand-Larsen goes up front with who? Bellegarde? I don't know. I just think it's a really poor squad that sold a lot of quality year in, year out, and eventually, when that's what you sow, this is what you reap. The only chance here is that it's a new manager. They might get a nice big bounce. There may be a sense of it's now or never, which it is, by the way, for Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they could nick a win. If they score the first goal here and the atmosphere is right and they get the game plan right, they could go on to win. So I don't discount them winning it. But so far, in terms of my money, they've shown me nothing to suggest they can. In terms of Crystal Palace, look, I think that they were always going to drop some points this season. They were always going to, with their schedule of games in 2 different cup competitions and the league, begin to struggle because there is not a great deal of rotation. But what is struggle? They're struggling in terms of like what you'd expect from Newcastle. You wouldn't expect this from Newcastle, from Crystal Palace. They continue to be in games even when they lose them. In all competitions, 1 defeat and 5. That was the loss against Arsenal, which was a very, very close game. They're a very solid team. There's going to be no Mark Gay here, we don't think, but 𝐿𝐿𝐼 came in. I thought was really, really good in the game against Brighton, where they weren't great offensively, but were strong defensively. Wharton, Jefferson Lerma, or Kamada in central midfield, depending on the balance, is very strong. The team is built around the energy of Munoz and Mitchell, and they're both fit. And the form of Jean-Philippe Mateta, 6 goals in the Premier League this season, continues to be very, very impressive. So look, we know what Palace do at this point. They'll be solid. They'll be well organised. They'll take chances when they come. They're very good on the break. They have a little bit of rotation in them. And I think Wolves, if they don't put on some sort of Herculean, we're in the soup, we've got to do something sort of performance, they will lose. You'd be a madman to bet on Wolves. So take the Palace win at 1.95. Struggling to see a goal from Wolves. Palace win to 0, 3.25, which I think is really generous considering Palace have one of the best defences in the league. Still just 9 goals conceded in the Premier League this campaign. It's only looking at the table, City and Arsenal, that have got better defensive records than Crystal Palace. So that's really, really impressive. So win to 0, 3.25 seems like a no-brainer. And if you're picking a player, you pick out Mateta anytime at 2.25. Add that to a Palace win, doubles your money.
Well, and one of the most interesting games this weekend is Newcastle Man City. Man City second in the standings, only 4 points away from Arsenal after the convincing victory against Liverpool with Erling Haaland on fire. Also, I guess, very happy qualifying Norway for the World Cup. And we are seeing a different Man City this season, much more vertical, not that much tiki-taka that we don't like, Tom. Even they are losing the possession to create much more chances. And perhaps one of the key men is Jeremy Doku. Very good season so far for the Belgian winger. But this is difficult. Going to St. James's Park is always difficult. Newcastle are only working when they are playing at home. 3 wins this season. And even the teams that went there and got the points, they suffer a lot. So it's going to be a torrid evening, I think, for Man City in Newcastle, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, Newcastle were so interesting in that a couple of times I watched them at home this season and they've looked fantastic. And certainly in the Champions League, they've really been impressive so far this campaign. And I think that, their midfield three is one of the best in the league in 𝐻𝐿𝐴 Tonali and 𝗵𝐵𝗷𝗏. Well, 𝗵𝗏 has been fantastic. Hasn't quite got the goals that his performances have deserved. He scored a few in all comps, but, 4 in the league is not quite enough right now for the Newcastle number 9. Now, of course, it was a slow start to the season in terms of playing for him. But there is something missing. There's definitely something missing. I think that if 𝐻𝐿𝐴 Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes do not have the energy levels required, there isn't really much else in the cupboard. Like, if you bring in, with all due respect, Lewis Miley or Joe Willock into that midfield three, the quality drop-off is significant. And we're seeing that in games this season. If you don't have a top performance from Dan Burn, who's suspended for this one, you move who to left back? Hall's never fit. Livramento's never fit. So you play 𝐿𝐴 at fullback in this game, maybe, or you go to 3 at the back, which he has occasionally done. There's not much depth at Newcastle, and the signings they brought in during the summer, like Anthony Alanka, has offered nothing. 𝐬𝐿𝐴 has hasn't played. That's £120 million worth of player. It doesn't matter if you're owned by a sovereign wealth fund or not. If someone comes in for that sort of money, you've got to do something, and those two players have done nothing. Look, maybe they'll come good, but I'm talking about where we are now, and I don't think Newcastle thought, again, Jacob Murphy will be playing every single game, but he is, because he continues to be their best creative player. So there are issues there for Newcastle. It is 3 wins at home in the league, but it's also 2 losses at home in the big games this season. And that's what's interesting here. They've lost the big games. They've done well against the smaller teams. I think Fulham and Wolves have come to St James's this year, and they've beaten them. But Liverpool, Arsenal, they struggled, and so they may well struggle here. But that's a similar tale when it comes to Man City, like away from home this season. They lost a couple of games, 2 defeats in 5, which is a surprise for Man City. There's a couple of times where they've looked really weak on the road this season, and I think the weakness comes from the back line. The continued playing of Núñez at fullback, Matheus Núñez, I think it's such a waste of resources. Go buy a right back if you want a right back. He's being moulded into basically wasting his career at Man City, which I think is a shame for someone of his talent. Diaz and 𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗀 or Stones, they're all struggling a bit at the moment. O'Reilly's been good going forward, but how good has he been defensively? There's no cover in front of them, with Rodri continuing to be out. He could be fit for this one. I don't know at this moment in time, but Nico Gonzalez is a good player. I think maybe he had his best performance for City in the last game against Liverpool, but he's not Rodri, right? How many times do we say he's not Rodri? You lose Rodri, you lose someone who has made world-class defenders of John Stones and Diaz and 𝗛𝗏𝗏𝗀 and others over the years. Aymeric Laporte springs to mind. So there's issues there, and if Newcastle midfield is on it, they will overwhelm the City midfield without Rodri. If it ends up being Bernardo Silva and Nico Gonzalez, good luck with that. If you're Man City. And you mentioned it, offensively, they have looked good, City. Doku was incredible against Liverpool. His best performance of the club, no doubt. Erling Haaland, 14 goals just in the Premier League this season, is astounding. And I think Phil Foden has come back to some semblance of form, and he hasn't really shown any of that for some time. So, look, I think there is a really interesting game to be played out here, but I think the City odds are pretty weak, considering they have lost 2 of their 5 away from home already this season. If Newcastle were super on it, then they have every chance of winning this game. And at 3.5, I'm taking that. I just think Newcastle are able to beat Man City. They could overpower Man City, and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀 against that City defensive pairing, I think there's a real chance they could score. Haaland has had off days this season, and Botman and 𝐻𝐴 are good centre-halves if they go with 2. So Newcastle win 3.5. Like that, take it. 1-0 to Newcastle is 13. I think it's going to be a very tight game, this. I don't see many goals in it. Again, if Newcastle win, it's already good odds, but win to 0 is 7. If you do fancy City, you do the same bet we've done every single week. Haaland scores and City win. That doubles your money. Haaland at least 2 goals if City win, because I think they'll need 2 goals to win. And frankly, who else is going to score?
Well, the smart bet, our AI tool in Oddspedia, is suggesting double chance 1x for Newcastle, 1.88. Last season was a draw in St James's Park, so good odds either way if you go for double chance for Newcastle, or if you trust Haaland and Man City is around 206. On Sunday, we have 2 games. Leeds, Aston Villa is the first one. Aston Villa now very close to the European spots after a bad start of the season, but now is 6 consecutive wins in all competitions, 4 of them in the Premier League. So we have good odds actually to back them at the Elland Road. The Leeds falling. Tom, only 1 point from relegation. You told me actually some weeks ago that you didn't see Leeds in the Premier League next season.
Yeah, look, I've said it for a long time. I'm going to stay with it until something changes. I think it will be Wolves, Leeds and Burnley. And I think that Leeds and Burnley don't have Premier League squads. I think it's as simple as that. I think they don't really have a goal scorer. I think the top scorer this season is like Joe Rodon at centre-half with two. There's 4 players they've got, 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴 and 𝗵𝐿𝐻𝐿 and 1 or 2 others who could have a breakout campaign, but there's nothing really that's convinced me so far they will. And look, their midfield is incredibly hardworking, right? If Leeds go down, they're going to go down kicking and screaming and punching and clawing, and they're going to do whatever they can to stay in this league. But Ampadu, Longstaff, Stark, 𝐷𝗲𝗏, Tanaka, these are championship players, with all due respect. And I think that we are seeing that now. And in fact, the only winning 5 was the game against West Ham. That was... They will hope the nadir of West Ham season, and West Ham with the late 𝗵𝗏𝗏 chance nearly got something from that game. Despite putting in such a bad performance, they changed basically the entire team in the game to try and get back into it because Nuno had some sort of weird brain aberration going into the Brentford Leeds games. So, look, I think that Leeds are going to be in the game, as they always are, but I don't think they have the required quality. I wonder who's going to score for them. And... like the home stadium gets you over the line is overblown. It always has been and always will be in football. But if you do have wind in your sails and you're on the attack and there's a feeling of confidence about the team brought to you by an increased atmosphere, Elland Road can have a massive difference. But as we've seen for 3 of the last 6 Premier League seasons, I think, Leeds at home when losing can be a terrible place, as it is for every team losing at home consistently. It can go silent, and when that happens, you can get the sense, as the away team, that you're on top. And look, you mentioned Villa's form. Villa's form has been built on a couple of things. Number one is the back line's been really good. Pau Torres fit again makes a huge difference to them because he improves everyone around him. Emi Martinez, after his weird want-away summer, has come back to really good form. And so when you've got Torres, 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴 and Martinez, fantastic. This team is built around Kamara and Onana in central midfield. Power, pace, finesse, and they're improving a lot at the moment, especially Onana. Really impressed by what he's been able to do under Unai Emery, and I think he's found a role in this team, and with it being built around him, he's been fantastic. That's giving protection to Morgan Rogers to run forward, and I think that he struggled, Emery, to find 2 players to support Watkins. It's been Rashford and 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵𝐿𝐴 and 𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 and well, that's enough. Traore, loads of players they've tried, and none of them have really worked. And so he's gone back to the 2 that did it in the Championship for them, John McGinn and Buendia. Years later, who are the best 2 players they've got currently? McGinn and Buendia. It's a great story. 4 years on from the promotion season, those 2 again are starring. So team looks settled, form is good, got to go Villa, 2.38, well worth your time. Look at the Leeds result as well. 3-1 loss, 2-1 win, 2-1 loss. I think it'll be very similar here to the Tottenham game. 2-1 to Villa is 9, well worth taking. I think both teams will score. I think Leeds are always worth the goals. We saw against Forest, saw against West Ham, saw against Spurs. But I think Villa will score more. Villa both teams to score is 5. If you're picking out players here, Watkins not scoring, Buendia is scoring. I'd take Rogers here if I picked anyone as any time, or take him goal or assist. Goal on its own anytime is 4.5. Double that with a Villa win, and you'll make some decent money.
And now the game of the weekend, North London Derby, Arsenal-Tottenham, after Arsenal drew with Sunderland before the international break and the massive blow of Gabriel's injury, perhaps until January. Still, of course, the season is going really well for Arsenal, but these 2 games are key, in my opinion, Tottenham and then Bayern, to see where this Arsenal is at the moment. Spurs 5th after the draw against Man United, another poor game for the Spurs. I think they've been a little bit disappointing this season, especially at home, but perhaps this kind of game, Tom, could suit them well. Just sitting back, trying to counter-attack, could be, but also the head-to-head is really poor recently for Tottenham. 6 consecutive games in the Premier League without a Spurs win in this derby.
Yeah, I think this is the best derby in the Premier League. I really do. I think it's given us some great quality, great drama. 2 teams that have been at the top of the table for the best part of the last 10, 15 years. And it's delivered some fantastic games as well. It's a great rivalry. Look, I think the loss of Gabriel is really significant here because when Arsenal try and score from a corner and Saliba is fouling the goalkeeper as he does every single time, who's going to then take the advantage of scoring the header at the back post if Gabriel is not there? Is it going to be 𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐼 who comes in, I guess? I don't think he's going to be as good as Gabriel. So look, I think he is probably the most critical player for what Arsenal do. And that's bold considering they have so many great players. But I think when games are tight, Saliba and Gabriel from the corner are getting Arsenal over the line time and time and time again by design. To not have him there, one of the best attackers of the ball in the air, in the league, maybe ever, that's a huge, huge problem. And so defensively too, of course, it is an issue, but I do think 𝐬𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐼 and 𝗵𝐿𝐴, depending on who plays, are more than capable of covering from a defensive point of view. But the trouble for Arsenal is they haven't scored many goals from open play. And that continues to be an issue for them. They are very, very solid, but unspectacular. They are an NFL team. They wait for breakdowns and free kicks and corners to score that first goal. And when the game opens up, they might then score a goal from that scenario. But in general, they keep it tight until they can nick that opening goal. And they will do that again here, right? That's exactly what they're going to do. I think we need more from Bukayo Saka. I think he is maybe the only player who's able to really do something dynamic and different in open play, and he doesn't do enough for me for Arsenal. Great player, but in this system, he is playing for corners, he is playing for free kicks, he isn't trying to do what he was doing 2 or 3 years ago, quick 1-2, combination play. All that's sort of gone, and now he is a bit of a sniffer at the back post, or he is someone that runs towards the end line, knocks it against the fullback like he's playing for Stoke in 2008, and tries to win a corner for his team. So I think we need more from him, and 𝐿𝐴ZZ's an interesting one as well, in that he's sort of replacing the creativity of Martin Ødegaard, who continues to be injured, and he's going to be out for a few more weeks still. But Ødegaard was playing underneath what we think he's able to do, and I think that's true of 𝐿𝐴ZZ as well. I think there's a lot more to come from Barry 𝐿𝐴ZZ, but again, are you going to do it in this team where creativity and dynamism is not really tolerated from Arteta? It's not what he wants. In terms of Arsenal, I think that they will again be very solid and they will try and get the victory here. But I think if Spurs score the opening goal, all bets could be off. And Spurs are fascinating in that at home sometimes this season, the Chelsea game was absolutely horrendous. They were awful in that match and deserved to lose it. But away from home against Leeds, very good. Against Everton, very good. You mentioned Man U last week. They were pretty poor and probably should have lost that game. Nearly won it, got the draw in the end. But they're built to play away from home. I think that, just checking my notes here to see if everyone's fit, I think they are fit. Mickey Van der Ven and Romero alongside him are probably the best balanced defensive pairing in the league in terms of what they can do going forward and defensively, but there's not a great deal of discipline in Romero. He hasn't quite worked out who the best fullbacks are yet. Is it Udogie? Is it Spence? Midfield looks a bit weak at times. They've had no creativity in the absence of Maddison. And I think Kudus looked good in the opening few weeks, but now he's gone. You've got this mishmash of sort of the same player. Simons or 𝐿𝐵𝐻𝐼 who's injured now, or maybe throw Kudus into this mix, or Matthias Tell. Like, I don't know who the best players are. I don't know what the best setup is. And Solanke being out means Richarlison's got to play, but he's playing him left wing, which was so weird against Man United. Made no sense that he did that. So I think maybe he's trying to make someone into his new 𝗵𝗵𝗏, and currently no one is stepping up to that plate. And we'll see what he does. But look, I think this is going to be really attritional. I think first goal going to be absolutely crucial. It's going to be physical. Look at the red card market here. Scream somebody gets sent off. Definitely Palhinha. But could be anybody, but Palhinha. But someone's going to get sent off in this game because it regularly happens in this derby. Look at the yellow card market. Over 7, over 8. Lots of yellows, lots of tackles. Blood, thunder, good stuff. Real Premier League sicko stuff coming up in this game. But in the end, I think you go the Arsenal win. Arsenal win at 1.4. We keep doing it, and I'm not backing away from it just because it didn't happen last time against Sunderland. Arsenal win to 0, 2.25. Arsenal win by exactly 1 goal. It's a really generous 3.5. Could be 1-0. Could be 2-1. Going to be pretty tight this game. Arsenal win under 2.5 goals is 3.5. Again, really generous considering that's happened plenty of times for Arsenal this season in games big and small. And it's an Arsenal game. What do? Corners, corners, corners. I would say at least over 12. Look at the 12 to 14 market for the first double your money line, but I think it might even be more than that.
Well, it looks like a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter instead of FIFA. This game, let's take a look at the smart bet, what the AI of Oddspedia is telling us. Total corners under 10.5. So the opposite, actually. Total goals under 3.5 is the second bet, 1.4. And double chance, X2, 3.13. This is what the smart bet is telling you. But Tom Rennie is telling you the opposite. So trust the people.
We agree on the under, though. The AI and I agree on the under. Don't have a go at me, machines. You're right. You're right, okay?
Not 1.4 is not too high, right? But still, yeah. Okay. Arsenal, Tottenham, great game this one. And for Monday, we have Man United, Everton. Man United probably saw themselves with the win against Tottenham, but at the end was a draw, back-to-back draws. They also drew with Nottingham Forest, so it's no defeats in the last 5, very close to the Champions League spots, above Liverpool. I'm just saying good things about Man United, and this is odd. And on the other hand, we have Everton beat Fulham 2-0. They are 5 points away from the bottom 3, so they are all right. So I guess this should be an spectacular win for Man United if things are normal in life, Tom.
Yeah, look, I think this will be a solid and unspectacular win for Man United, and I think that's a real rejuvenation for them, considering where they've been for the last couple of years, and certainly the last year under Ruben Amorim. Like, is the shape working? No, I don't think so. Would another manager get results as good as this? Yeah, probably. Like, I don't give Amorim a great deal of credit for the way they've won in recent times. I think some of the players have started turning up. I think Brian 𝗵𝗲 has been brilliant this season. I think he's been one of the best players in the league so far. I think that he has given a lot to the team in terms of goals, but also creativity and dynamism and being able to hold the ball. And I think some of his link play with 𝗿𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐭'𝐬 has been great. I think Benjamin Šeško being injured does him a favour, because I think he's been the weak link in the new signings, and it's going to be a front three probably of Mason Mount, Brian 𝗵𝗲 and 𝗵𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐭'𝐬. That's a front line that's got a lot of endeavour to it, and they can really work you. And Everton's back line does not have a great deal of ability to move into 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐭'𝐬 and Michael Keane. And if you've got movement against Everton, you're going to score against them. And we've seen that plenty of times this season. If you don't have that, as we saw with Fulham, there's every chance Everton go on to a comfortable victory. I think they looked great against Spurs, Man United, for 60 minutes until Casemiro went off. And then when Casemiro went off, it all sort of falls apart. 𝗏𝗏𝗏, who was part of a Uruguay team that lost 5-1 to America a few days ago, has been just so poor. Like, he really has not delivered in the Premier League, 𝗏𝗏𝗏. And I think that when he goes off, Casemiro goes off and 𝗏𝗏𝗏 comes on, United lose a lot, but if they're 2-0 up at that point, they should go on to victory. Intrigued that when he goes off, they don't play 𝗁𝗏𝗏 at any point, or he comes on for like 4 or 5 minutes. Seems like Casemiro for 𝗁𝗏 makes a lot of sense to me, but it's not a sub we're seeing very often. So look, they're solid Man United, they're unspectacular, and I think that if they change to a more sensible formation and stop trying to do all this sort of stuff, they'd probably win more convincingly with the quality of players they've got. In terms of Everton, standard Moyes 4-2-3-1. I think Jack Grealish's form has fallen off a cliff in recent weeks. It's going to be built around 𝗀𝗌's solo brilliance. But if he doesn't do something special, or Grealish doesn't come back, Barry and Beto are poor strikers and they keep missing chances. If Barry took that chance against Sunderland, they win at the Stadium of Light, but they don't, and then a goal goes in, and in the end they're holding on for a draw. I think there's a lack of movement in midfield, in Idrissa Gana Gueye and James Garner and whomever else they might play in there. So they can get overrun in midfield in most games, maybe not this one. Look, I don't have much faith in Everton going away to win. Let's put it that way. So United win 1.73. Win to nil with double your money at 3. Look up the Brian 𝗵𝗏𝗏 market. He's fantastic. Anytime is 2.5. First goal on 𝗵𝗏 6.5. That's probably your biggest punt of the week, and I'd probably take that. And look at a couple of scorelines. 1-0 was 7.5. 2-0 was 8.5. Comfortable. Don't concede. Not many goals. Man United win.
Well, this is it for the comeback of the Premier League match day 12. Remember, guys, that you have the chance to win some money thanks to Oddspedia. We have our tipster competitions going on, and we have a Premier League one, a specific one for the Premier League. So let's participate, and don't forget also that we have rivals available for you, so you can create your own tipster league. Tom, let's go with your safe bet.
Yeah, safe bet's tricky at the moment. There's a tricky one this weekend because Arsenal, tough game, Man City, tough game. So I've taken Liverpool. I'll take Liverpool to win at 1.4. I did flirt with Chelsea, but I do think Liverpool are going to beat Forest at home. Reports of their demise greatly exaggerated.
Well, there are always so many surprises between these international breaks and the Champions League, and it looks like these teams have easy fixtures, and perhaps we see some surprises in the Premier League. And the ACCA, Tom?
It's the teams I mentioned that I was too afraid to put in my safe bet. So I'm putting Liverpool in, but I'm also throwing Chelsea to win at Burnley and Arsenal to win the North London derby. It's double your money. There are some more daring bets here, but I do quite like that double your money treble.
Well, Tom, don't forget to bring your scarf to go to the pub or the stadium. It's getting cold, but here we are cozy and warm to enjoy the Premier League. Bye-bye, Tom. Thanks, everyone.